Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Five Door Media Podcast. Today, we are the first episode of season 6. It's crazy. We're on season 6 of this podcast already. This season, we are digging deep into one of the biggest challenges every cleaning business owner faces, and that's hiring and recruiting. From building a team that you can trust to creating systems that attract the right people to leading in a way that keeps top talent, this season is all about solving the people puzzle in the cleaning industry. Whether you're trying to hire your first employee or scale to dozens of cleaners, you'll find strategies, stories, and practical advice to help you grow your team with confidence. For our first episode in season 6, we are bringing on two powerhouse entrepreneurs who know firsthand what it takes to build and grow a cleaning company in today's labor market. Lacie Nash and Kari Merrell are the owners of Clean Squad in Michigan, a fast growing residential cleaning company known for its strong culture, smart systems, and commitment to building a team that sticks. Like many owners, they face the challenges of hiring, training, and keeping great people in an industry with notoriously high turnover. But instead of settling for constant frustration, they've leaned into creating a workplace where employees feel valued, supported, and motivated to succeed. In this episode, we're talking about what it really takes to attract the right candidates, how to train and retain them, and why hiring is less about filling roles and more about building a team driven business. Lacie and Kari, welcome to the show. So glad to have you here.
Thank you for having us.
You. It's nice to be here.
Absolutely. So this is Lacie's second time on the show. If you guys are listeners or watchers of the show, Lacie was on a culture episode a while back. So Lacie, great to have you back, and Kari, great to have you on the show for the first time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Let's get into it. Let's set the scene, as I like to say. This is a extremely important topic in the cleaning business industry. If you know, marketing gets talked a lot about, training gets talked a lot about, sales gets talked about, but like I feel like hiring and recruiting for any cleaning business that's really looking to grow and scale, it is one of the top topics. So it's crazy that it's taken us 6 seasons to get here. But you know, hiring, I really believe is maybe the number one pain point for a lot of cleaning business owners. From your perspective, what makes recruiting in this industry so tough? Not just right now, but it seems like it always has been.
Yeah, I would say that, people think cleaning is easy, number one. So it's not just dollar store products, right? And going into houses and doing whatever. There's training involved. So being able to find candidates that match what you're looking to accomplish, or at least have the skill sets necessary to be coachable through that, is definitely challenging because you can go to the dollar store and get a caddy of supplies and clean houses. So, finding people that are open to understanding that there's more to it than just that is sometimes challenging for sure.
I love it.
Yeah, definitely finding the right people. It's one of those jobs that everybody thinks that they can do until they try to do it.
100%. Yeah. And like that's the reason people hire people to do it because they don't want to do it. Right.
Absolutely.
What are some changes that you've seen? We could talk Michigan, where you're located, but just like overall, I know you're both very involved in the industry on a national basis as well. So tell me what has changed in the hiring landscape, maybe over the last couple of years, in this industry as a whole, and how you've responded to it.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that in general, labor markets have shifts that happen naturally. After COVID, we became a very employee centric labor market. And,
Mm.
the employers that were not focused on creating company culture and a company where people wanted to be, they definitely struggle. COVID changed the leadership landscape as well. So I think that, if you weren't a strong leader before COVID, you didn't have a choice after COVID. So, I mean, we lost our entire team. So we had to get real in the weeds with it and figure out what kind of company do we want to run and how are we going to attract the candidates that would match that. And so it does swing back and forth, based on how the labor market is functioning and performing. Sometimes we're more employee centric in the market, and sometimes it's more employer centric. So it just depends on really where you are, and that kind of changes how you attract candidates and, retain them. So,
Very
Having
interesting point. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Carrie. Yeah.
well, go ahead.
No, your point about COVID changing things, which COVID changed I mean, literally everything, right? Well, I mean, some things it's changed. Maybe we haven't even realized it changed yet, but we will soon. COVID changed everything, but specifically in expectations of employees, expectations in the hiring process. So I think you're right on with that, Lacey. What were we going to say, Carrie?
I was just gonna say technology has been just rapidly evolving so quickly that we have, utilized it. We use technology in a lot of ways, but the main thing is just to keep candidates in front of our faces. The more we use, AI to
Mm.
post our ads that we make, of course, and then get the people in front of us, the better our chances are of finding the right people.
Yeah. I think too to that, switching to a more technology-based recruiting option does have its limitations and challenges sometimes. You cast a really wide net and then you have to be able to filter that in a way that gets you candidates that are going to fit within the culture that you have, but also do a great job and can be trusted, right? So, what does that look like? It used to be a lot of face-to-face interaction, and it's a lot less of that now, and so how do you integrate that into your hiring process so that you're still getting candidates in the door that are qualified for the role, and you're not spending time filtering through them, right?
And just juggling how much work is needed with how much workers are needed to do that work. We recently had Matt Ricketts on the show, and he said our average is we go through 500 applications to get one human being. It's just their filter process is just bonkers, right? But let's talk about attracting the right people because that's really where this starts. It is not hard to attract people in general, right? But it's very hard to attract the right people. And Carrie, you mentioned using technology for this. You've mentioned AI, but what have you guys found that works really the best to attract quality candidates for cleaning jobs? I mean, job ads, referrals, social media, showing off your culture and your branding. What have you guys used and what are you using that works?
Yeah, it's a great combination of a lot of those things that you listed, Drew. Making sure that your job ad is one that showcases your culture through it is really important. I think that when you have a really great job ad out there that, it has little glimpses of what you have going on. What kind of management team are you? What kind of team are they integrating into? Those are all really important to get that first level of attraction. And then we funnel them through some filtering, obviously, like Ricketts was talking about. Of course, there's like base level filtering. Do you have a driver's license? Do you have a vehicle? Um, and then once that happens, we're able to, obviously the numbers dwindle and then we funnel them into a more in house, a little bit more hands on process. So I think it's really just a fine tuned it's just a fine-tuned process and you have to kind of tweak it. It's
Mm.
similar to marketing in that way. You put something out, maybe you put copy out and you're like, okay, let's see how it performs. Let's do an A/B test, right? So hiring is very much so like that. And you have to be able to look at things and say, okay, our job ad is not performing as well as it should. What should we do? Let's look at it. How do we tweak it in a way that gets us more candidates? So finding that sweet spot is probably the most critical component for
I
sure.
think that comparison to marketing is so real, right? I mean, we do all we can, we tweak, we change to get the highest quality lead of a customer. But in reality, like really trying to attract the right people, it's the same concept, right? We could probably go through our 5 door method that we use for marketing for the exact same thing for hiring, right? Um,
100%.
Fascinating. Yeah, good point.
Internal clients versus external. It's literally it's the same thing. It's just, different spin on it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, Carrie, talk to us more about that specific process, right? So, where are you using to that? What's working right now to attract the best quality candidates that you guys are seeing? And like, kind of walk us through that funnel, right? Like, what is your interview process? Where do they go? What's that step by step look like for you?
Yeah, so we utilize a third party that does keep our ad posted and just kind of host everything for us. And so what they do is they just go in, fill out their application, they get a few questions that they have to fill out that qualifies them, and then after that they get a personality test, and that's a huge one. If they pass the personality test high enough, they're just prompted to schedule their own interview, and we have times that we're available.
Mm.
I have 2 hours on Thursdays. Whoever shows up for those interviews, those are our first people. And immediately upon entering, we start giving them tasks that show us whether they can follow directions. We have a basket full of different colored pens, and I say, fill out this application with a blue pen. It's the very first thing. If you don't get that, then I don't even need to hear back from you. And then we give them a call back. We really want to make sure that they are committed to what we have going on. Our first interview process is more us telling them about who we are and what to expect from us, and a little bit about who they are and what to expect from, or what we can expect from them. But then they call back the next day, and then we have them come in again.
Mm.
They have 2 face-to-face interviews, and that second one is a lot more in depth. And we don't ask them questions about cleaning. We ask them questions like, what is the most interesting thing about you that I wouldn't learn from your resume? And we hear answers like, I have a New Kids on the Block tattoo. And we love that.
Hired.
Exactly.
Our goal
Or
is to find
we
people
have
we want
people
to spend
say,
time with.
yeah. Or we have people say, I went to school for mortuary science.
Mm.
And you're like, great. When you have to clean up that poop on the toilet, you're not gonna have a problem with it.
Great point. Yeah.
You know?
And so, it is extensive in the beginning, but once they get through that, then we know like, hey, they know what we're about. They are interested in being here, and we don't have really high expectations on people sticking around for too long. This isn't the job for everyone, and we don't think everyone is great at this job. So it's a 3-day decision making once they're here. And just keeping things moving constantly keeps the ability to have somebody next week as much as we need.
Sure. You mentioned a lot of this process is face to face in person, which obviously like this industry is a very much in person. No one can like remote clean, right?
Mhm.
I'm cleaning from my home. You're cleaning your house, maybe, but you can't clean our clients' houses. But at the same time, there's that argument about how technology can be used in this hiring process. And I'm guessing you guys have tested it. You sound like very much practitioners of this process of your business, which is why we have you on today. What have you seen when it comes to maybe like Zoom interviews, kind of like what we're doing right now, compared to like a face to face interview? And what made you land on doing more face to face?
Yeah, so I definitely think that that's very relative to the size of your business. When you're smaller, and not to say we're small necessarily, but when you're smaller, I feel like having your hands on that process, you know, using a third party software to get you, to cast a really wide net is good, but your staffing levels are so critical when you're smaller
Mm,
because there's not anywhere for that stuff to go. If somebody's not here, somebody else has to pick it up, right? And so the larger you get, you have a little bit more room for that. And so I think that, as we scale, that first part of the process by and large will probably be a virtual process because it is very much so a sales pitch on why us, right? Because think about it. You go to a job interview and you have this great conversation about you, but you leave. If you haven't asked the right questions, you don't know if that's a company that you want to commit to. And so we just feel like it's really important that they understand exactly what they're getting into and also what kind of company they'll be working for first. And so as we scale, I do think that a more virtual first meeting might be something that we do where it maybe has a couple recorded questions for them to answer and then a video for them to watch about what kind of company they're signing up for, right? But right now, we're just in a space where this works really well for us. So it has given us the ability to keep our employee attrition down. And so that's a factor for us right now as we grow the business. We really want to make sure that who we bring in is sticky or as sticky as possible so that we can focus our efforts in growing the business.
100%. Yeah. Carrie, any thoughts on the technology versus face to face?
I mean, I think, just to be fair, in 2025, we spend too much time solo by ourselves, holed up in our houses, and forcing them to walk into my business without ever having spoken to anyone creates a level of anxiety that's similar to walking into somebody's house to clean it for the first time.
Mm,
And so that right there just puts them, it just shows us that part of this job is something that they potentially are going to be able to manage.
I love that. Very cool. I want to know,
The other
or sorry, go ahead.
part,
Go ahead. Yeah.
the other cool part, Drew, is we have a shop dog.
Oh, yeah.
And I love that for them
Yeah.
because that's something we deal with. And it goes back to like what Carrie said about little tiny things in the interview process that we're watching for, right? And so we don't at Clean Squad, we don't have we have some pet guidelines, but we don't have some services require them all to be put up.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily have that kind of guideline. And so having a shop dog is really great because she heats the door. And so the minute they get here, she's interacting with them. And we're watching, like, how do they handle this
Mm,
scenario? It's unexpected. Are they friendly? You know what I mean? So it's just another one of those things. And I think that's one of the most important parts of hiring and hiring well is Think about what it is that they're going to run into when they're out there and sprinkle as many of those things as you can into that process. Because what happens then is once they finish that process, they are fully on board. They know exactly what to
Yeah.
expect. And we know what we're going to get too.
It's so true. And, what's that old saying? Your measure is not measured in what happens to you, but how you respond to it. So, like those moments that you can like throw into them in that interview process, like the dog, right? They're gonna go to a home, and there's gonna be a dog at the door as well. How do you respond to it? And if you say you're a cat person, you're immediately not qualified. We'll go to the next candidate, in my opinion. So, we just lost half of our viewers there by my dog opinion. I'm curious if you guys are seeing, like I said, you guys are involved nationally, quite a bit in this industry. So you probably hear stories all the time. But are there mistakes you're seeing other cleaning business owners making that they're trying to hire that end up maybe pushing good people away? We talk a lot about like what good to do, but what are some things maybe people aren't realizing they're doing that are pushing good candidates away?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have seen in the industry, and this is really wild to me, but some people do working interviews. That's interesting. We have executed that a couple times in the time of our company, in the history of our company. But I think working interviews are really difficult. Are difficult for us to navigate in terms of that's traffic outside.
You're good.
They're difficult in terms for us to navigate in terms of pay and, but also I think, sending somebody in here for an interview while working, it's just that's an anxiety
Well,
ridden
let's pause
situation.
there. So someone maybe listening, they're not sure what you mean by working interview. Explain, what does that mean? Yeah.
Absolutely. So you might have an interview where we decide that you might be a good culture fit, and the very next interview is one where you come ready to get dirty.
Mm,
So you're just gonna come in and we're gonna either take you to a house or, maybe you'll clean part of the office, whatever that looks like. And so for me, we're of the camp that we try to set our team up for success first and then manage the expectations. And so for us, that doesn't work well for us, but I know that some companies do that. I just think that sometimes with, anxiety levels of people, in an interview in general, that might end up being a situation where they fail, but they might succeed if they had been given the chance. That's kind of why we do once we have acquired a new team member, we do a 3-day. Like
yeah.
the third day of training is decision day. So we just decide, is this a good fit or not?
Gotcha. What about you, Carrie? Are you seeing certain things people are doing that potentially are pushing good people away?
I really think that it has more to do with how they're operating and leading the people that they have, and how those people are talking about them outside of their business, and that's the main thing that I think. For our crew, I think that they feel really appreciated. We do our best to try to do that, and so they go outside of our business and they talk about how nice it is to work here and things like that. And just that kind of word of mouth is a big deal. But if you're sitting here and you have, a problem child who is making $30 an hour and half shows up to work and is doing, less of the job sites and things, you're not going to be able to find people who are going to volunteer to come and
Mm,
participate.
Yeah, the culture that you have is definitely a factor as well. Like Carrie's saying, if you don't have strong leadership, it makes it hard to hire because, even though you think your job ad is out there and it's anonymous, it's not. People are talking about it. You can get your company rated online now for
yeah.
hiring. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. And I think strong leadership is definitely a component of that for sure.
Let's pivot into that culture conversation and how that melts into hiring, which I had mentioned, Lacey, you were on our, I think it was season 3, which was a culture topic. How does a company um, show off their culture in this hiring process? How do you use it as a tool? I think a lot of people, this is where, to go back to our last question, like where you're pushing good people away, like you said, I think not showing your culture enough, or not showing and giving that like look through the window of what it would actually be like to work here on a like a daily basis, that potentially could be a big thing that pushes people away. But how are you using the culture that you've built at Clean Squad in that hiring process to attract but also like keep?
That's that first interview. They come in and we tell them about who we are. We want people who want to participate, not just to think it sounds interesting, right? So if we are telling them about the types of programs that we have and the types of things that we do around here, we do a lot of it. So it's easy to talk about. We also, because we do those first few interview, or that first interview potentially is a group interview because people can sign up more than one person. So we have little booklets in the back. It's pictures of us. It talks about some of the things that we do. We definitely tell people the on all of our marketing and stuff that this is the kind of stuff that we do.
I think too, Drew, to that, again, as I talked about in the culture episode, culture is showcased in tiny micro habits that you have. So, just like they're here to give us an impression on them, first impression, we are also here to give them a first impression. And so it goes back to, we can talk about it all day long. We can give them a booklet that showcases our team and what we got going on. But if when they show up, the person that's supposed to interview them is not here,
Mm.
or they're late, or we don't have the supplies needed to get the interview accomplished. So we work really hard to make sure that those things are set up in advance, because if I want to hold an expectation to you when you get here that you're organized and put together and you look tidy and neat, I have to have those things as well. So on interview days, there's no sweatpants in this office. We just don't, that's not how we do it. And so I think it goes back to like making sure that you're modeling the kind of behaviors that you expect from your candidates helps to kind of show them, okay, listen, this is a stand-up company. This is what we have going on. I'm going to sign up for that or I'm not,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
100%.
All of the questions that we ask them, for the most part, it's not about, hey, what is your cleaning experience? It's, hey, how have you put a client's needs over yours? It's things like that because I'm going to have you come in and tell me how you fit in my culture. How do you come into this? And we demand it. It's an expectation. So immediately we want them to know, like, we hold you to a higher standard here.
Love that. It's that soft skills versus hard skills, conversation too, right? And a lot of EQ involved in any service space, but especially this industry too. More on retention. I mean, let's talk about pay, right? I mean, there is so many theories. There's, thoughts and concerns about what you should pay. But what I want to talk about more is like, do you think pay is a main driver for retention in this industry, or are there other factors that matter even more? And how have you measured that? And have you been surprised by some of the results?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I could talk all day about this. We started our
Well, it's an
company.
hour long podcast. We don't have all day.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'll give you enough. When Carrie and I started our business, we started it each other. We were in the field, and after about 30 days, I left a career in banking before I started Clean Squad with Carrie. And after about 30 days, I looked at her and I said, I'm not interested in paying anybody to do this work for $13 an hour because it's hard. It's hard on your body,
Yeah.
obviously this is a grand scale and it's a little bit excessive for me to say this, but it's the equivalent of like NFL players, right? They make a ton of money. And the reason they make a ton of money is because their longevity in that field is very small. The window of time that they could work is very small.
That's what the NFL
And
stands for,
so
right? Not for long.
exact
That's what I've always kept
exactly,
told. Yeah.
exactly. And so I equate that to our field as well. And like, can you have longevity here? Yes. But this is hard on your body. It's hard on your body physically, it's hard on your health. And so again, going back to the culture, we do as many things as we can to eliminate that health component for them. But physically it's hard. And so we used to work in teams. We switched after COVID, a couple of years ago to solos, and in that hand we switched from an hourly pay to a commission pay, and it really really changed the culture, but it also changed the quality of candidate that we can attract. So I have seen firsthand what it is like to pay an hourly rate and then to pay commission, because an hourly rate, you're especially when you're sending teams, you're limited. We're sending two men to do this job, two men, women.
Humans.
um,
Yeah.
so our hourly wait rate is a lot lower than we can pay when we send them on commission, right? And so I think that in terms of employee attrition, it has really, really changed our business switching over to a commission model. They're doing slightly more work than they were doing before, but the pay is just dramatically better. And so that allows us to trim waste in the company, which means we can offer things like benefits, right? And then it allows them to make money that they otherwise wouldn't be able to make. And so paying them between $22 and $30 an hour all day, I'll do it. I'd do it all over again because it has changed the quality of
And
candidates.
when you say commission, that is equal to pay per performance, right? Like it's the same
For
or
it's pretty similar,
okay,
yeah.
gotcha. Yeah, it's just for people listening. And if
Yeah.
you're starting out, like we said in the intro of the show, like I think people are going to be listening to this when they're like looking to hire their first employee or maybe looking to add
Yeah.
dozens. So I'm just making sure we're defining those terms.
Yeah.
That makes complete sense. But as I was saying, like, are you seeing it being for retention's sake specifically? Is money or is pay at the top of the list when it comes to why people stick around? Or are you seeing other things that are like helping them stick around as well?
I think that pay is definitely the top thing. I think it is number 1. I don't think it's the be all end all because we do have people that leave this job, you know. A lot of times it's family related stuff. When we started Clean Squad, I was going through a divorce. I'm a single mom with 4 kids. They are my oldest is about to be 18, so I'm almost done. But at the time, the reason that starting Clean Squad was the best case scenario for us was because I needed to be available for my children and also be able to financially provide for them. And so once we were able to do that for ourselves, I realized, hey, there are a lot of people out here like me who are going to be really capable of doing this job, but they can't take it unless we're paying them what they need. And the hours are school schedule, you know?
Mm.
So once we got to that point, I think that that really added to who we could attract. The money and the schedule was a huge thing. But more recently, we have just decided that we, as an organization, we're going to give back and we're going to provide opportunities for our crew to give back to our community. And I think that really helps them to feel like this is their life. This is who we are. This is what we do all the time.
Mm.
And so we pay them for to go out and we do volunteer things together. And I think for me, that's what sets my soul on fire. So
Yeah.
that's why we do it.
Love
I
that.
think to answer your question more in depth, Drew, I think that it is, the hard and fast answer is yes, it allows you to attract a candidate and it does help with attrition. But I think it goes back to that conversation of like, if we present the culture as this and then they get here and it's this, then it's a different decision, right? And so it goes back to like we want to present the culture as this, but then when they get here, we want the culture to be this. And so what that means is like different people are attracted to jobs and stay at jobs, long term for different
Mm.
reasons. If you look at, generational, characteristics, your millennials are different, motivated in different ways than your Gen Z and your Gen X, so it's all about making sure that you're kind of touching on all of those points in your culture because that's what creates less attrition in your employees. Some people are here because they feel rewarded by the work,
Mm.
you know, and the money is just a factor. It's not the factor. Some people are here because the money's good, so it just depends on where people are. And that is a question on our interview questions. How do we reward you,
Yeah.
acknowledge you, or recognize you for a job well done? Because we want to know, are they motivated by money? Do they want a standing ovation? Like whatever it is.
And we do, just try to work with each individual. One of the things that I have made a point in my life is that as soon as somebody walks in the door for their first day, I memorize their immediate family's names. Every single one of them, because I'm going to ask you tomorrow about little Jane.
Mm.
And that kind of stuff is meaningful to people. I might ask about your daughter every single day, but if I don't know her name, you don't know if I know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We also kind of let them deal with the clients. They have a level of ownership here that's different than if they were hourly employees who were going out and working in a team like they used to be. And because of that, they get to know each other, their team or their clients, and we really can spend more of our time pouring into them, our employees, and just rely on them to pour into our clients. And honestly, that system works better than anything we've tried.
I love it. I like learning from a lot of people. Obviously, that's why I started a podcast, but probably the person I learned the most from is my wife. And she has a phrase and kind of like a life goal of hers. And it's to be the reason someone feels welcome, seen, heard, and valued. And I feel like that plays such a giant role into culture and just employee retention. But what you just mentioned, like knowing their immediate family's names, that does that, right? Like it is a step deeper than just knowing their name and they work for you, right? I love that.
Yeah. And I think we talked about this before, Drew. Like Carrie and I are just different personalities. We started this company as best friends and we still are best friends, which again, I don't recommend everybody do. Please, if you're starting a business, do not take that advice. Because not because it doesn't work well for us, because it does, but it doesn't work well for everybody.
Yeah.
And so, like, again, like through that hiring process, Carrie is more of that feel good, hearts, rainbows kind of person. I am not, and that's just the culture we have. I'm more on the business end of it,
Sure.
and so although I'm the one who will bawl at a speech or, so I have, that spot in me, but we play to those strengths and weaknesses through the hiring process too. And I think that's really important because when you get here, when you're here, that's exactly what you're going to see. So again, through that hiring process, the culture that you're coming into is modeled for you right off rip. Carrie gets them for the first interview. Usually I get them for the second round, or we both get them for the second round, depending and that's just kind of how we make sure that they're getting all those touches as well.
I love it. Let's talk about onboarding. So we've talked about attracting the right people. We've talked about they're in our offices. We're doing in-person interviews. We're like feeling them out. They're feeling us out. We've gotten to a place. They've gone to that third interview. They are hired. They are a member of the squad, right? Now, well, let's talk about onboarding and training. Once someone is hired in your world, what is your process to really set them up for success in that first 30 to 60 days?
I'll let Mary talk about that.
Yeah. So, the majority of our training program is virtual. They get that sent to them via our payroll processor. I know there's lots of other ways you can do it, but that's the way that we do it. And so it goes with all of their documents that they have to sign. We have videos, we have written documents, and we have quizzes throughout that. So by the time they walk in on their first day, they're ready to go clean. They go
Wow.
with their trainer and they do bathrooms all day, day one. They do dusting all day, day two, and they do kitchens all day, day three. And that's decision day, right? So we ask our trainer, is this person going to cut it? Is their
Mm,
quality level going to be where it needs to be? Are they going to be friendly with their clients? Are they going to be able to find houses? If our trainer tells us no, they're not it, then they're done. We're not even gonna continue to move forward with them. If the trainer says, yeah, let's keep going, then they have another 7 days of training where they go out and they practice. Our trainer has a list of different kinds of tasks that the trainee should be doing, yelling out clean squad when they arrive, all of those types of things. And then we do a evaluation at the end of 2 weeks. If you can't get it in 2 weeks, you're not gonna get it. You're not gonna get it here. And so that's it. That's the end. If they have made it, then we do have a couple of other processes that we do afterwards. But for the most part, they are solo at day 11, and they get one house a day for the first 5 days. If they're still here at 3 weeks, it's hit the ground running.
sure. So
And then by 90 days, they need to be within our metrics. Our software that we use for calculating everybody's pay per job site, it does give us how fast or what percentage of the time we said should be taken that they take, as well as there's scorecards or surveys sent to all of our clients. And so the parameters for that are that they have to be within 90 and 110% of our time, and they have to have a 95% scorecard or higher at 90 days.
gotcha. And I'm guessing all of those expectations are laid out ahead of time so they
Oh,
know
yeah.
the benchmarks are.
With
Yeah.
During the training process, they have a daily meeting with their trainer and either Carrie or myself. We talk about things like timeliness and attitude and the ability to apply feedback that you're receiving from your trainer. And they give feedback about their trainer as well. And so it kind of goes back to we talked about during that company culture podcast about, that three-way feedback and how critical it is in all areas of your business. If you're not gathering feedback from your employees about your management style or your ability to manage your own responsibilities, you're missing the mark. And so we do that every single day during the first 10 days. It takes about 15 minutes. But it's really an easy way for us to weed out people who are not necessarily, going to cut it for the job because by the end of that 3 days, they know and we also know,
Yeah.
you know. So it's just like, hey man, this just doesn't work.
Shouldn't be a
So
surprise. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly, and it makes it so much easier for us because we're both on the same
Yeah.
page. It's like a self-assessment, so, Yeah, and taking our training program from what it was before, which was like 90 days long,
Mm.
to 2 weeks
Huge.
was so scary for us.
Yeah.
But the best part about it was we put together the framework, and I've said this before, you launch when you're 70% because we've built on it and added to it and refined it even more since then, and it just keeps getting better and better. But if we hadn't launched when it was 70%, we'd still be stuck at a 90-day training process. So, it was great.
Tell me more about the trainer position, because that person was mentioned multiple times throughout the process of what Carrie was talking about. Tell me about that human being and how they get qualified to be in that role. And people listening can get an idea, like they're probably going to have somebody in their head, like, oh, they're going to be my trainer, or something like that. So tell me about that role.
It definitely has to be more than just being good at their own job. And that's, I think, what most people they have a hard time understanding is that, hey, maybe Sarah is a fantastic cleaner. Maybe she does make all her time frames and everybody's happy, but she doesn't know how to tell somebody that they did something wrong. Or she is, unavailable in the afternoons. Like there's so many different things that could cause that. So when we're identifying people to do training, there are metrics that they have to meet. Their percentages have to be a lot tighter than those ones that I mentioned for our cleaners, and they have to show us that they already are a leader. They have to show us that they're already giving feedback, that they're already participating in our weekly meetings that we have. And mostly those are mostly about customer service scenarios, and I want to know that you know exactly what the response is in this situation before we even engage in any of the other kinds of conversations. It's really, are you able to communicate effectively? Are you able to make a point without hurting people's feelings? Are you willing to say a negative thing to somebody?
But also, we have a culture of upward movement here. So, it's not, if you declined, obviously we're not going to let you go, but it is an expectation that people are working on honing those skills. So, oftentimes it's a shoulder tap. We might post a job posting, but it's oftentimes a shoulder tap like, hey, we feel like you're ready for this. You're showing us that you're meeting these metrics. You're showing us that you have the ability to coach others in your role. And then we just hold them to that standard. They have the same KPIs, for that role
Mm.
that are a little bit higher than our regular technicians roles. And so, yeah,
Love that.
definitely.
So you guys are in a unique situation as co-owners, and I'm curious, having you both on this, but how do you divide responsibilities around this hiring, training, and culture building? And how long did it take you to realize, Carrie does this, Lacie does this? I love, like, you guys have a lot of self-awareness, I think, which is great. But like self-awareness is a learned thing, I believe. I don't think we're just born with self-awareness. So tell us about that journey you guys have taken to know, like, here's Carrie's strengths, here's Lacey's strengths. Go.
Yeah. So, when we started our business, I used to manage all the logistics, the dispatch and scheduling. And I had a book and a binder, and I'd write it all down. This is before the days of technology and in our business, right? And so one day I was having a conversation with Carrie about when a client is serviced, and she knew right off rip when they were serviced. She could just tell me it's 2 days from tomorrow. And I'm like, what in the world? How do you know that?
Yeah.
And her brain just works like that. And so May will be 10 years in business for us. And I will say that we have learned so much about each other and our skill sets in that 10 years. But I will say that the way that those conversations and the way that you have those discoveries is through having conversations about, what's happening in your business. And the challenge for us is that sometimes our skill sets overlap. Most of the time they do not, but sometimes they overlap in terms of what role in your company does what. So like my title is CEO and hers is COO. And in a lot of ways, our skill sets overlap into those other roles. And so we do have our challenges in terms of dividing that and figuring out how that works. And sometimes we have to look at each other and say, hey, that's not within your role. That's within my role. Let me handle that. And so I'm just challenging to people who are starting their businesses. You do have to sit down at some point and map that out and look at it because my role requires growth and so does Carrie's. And so sometimes what that means is that even though my skill set is over there in her role, I have to kind of hone the role that I have, right? And so the reason that that's important is because You can't grow if we're both doing the same job.
Yeah.
So even though my skill set is her role and I'm better at it, there's a lot of other things within my role that I'm better at. So I do have to leave that for her and let her do it and vice versa. And so I think sitting down and mapping those out was a huge, huge component for us because it allowed us to see, okay, these are where maybe I need to do some improvement in my role, and these are where she needed to do some improvement in her role. And we can hold each other accountable for what those roles look like. And so it definitely has challenges that I think single owner businesses don't run into for sure.
I honestly feel like it's more of a benefit for us. You know, we have very opposite personalities. We always knew that about ourselves because we were friends for several years before we started Clean Squad. So, but Lacey and I both have a similar perspective of we should be focusing on doing the things that we do really, really, really well, and the things that we don't do well, we'll pay somebody else to do that. And I think, like, for us, we didn't have to pay somebody else to start with because it was her and I. If it's a single owner business, though, I think the same philosophy applies. If you are a 9 out of 10 in something, and a 5 out of 10 in something, and a 1 out of 10 in something, pay somebody to do the thing you're a 1 out of 10 in, work on your 5 out of 10 skill, and do your 9 out of 10. You know, it just looking at it differently. Why fight against who I am as a human being?
100%. And I don't know, Lacey, you've met Erin, my wife, and like, there's a part of me I wish she would have been on this today because, you know, Carrie, you are Erin, and Lacey is me in our business.
Yeah.
And it, like,
Yeah.
you're right. It took us a minute to like really figure that out. But like, Carrie, I'm with you. Like, what if you get to figure that out, which it is not easy to like really figure out the yin and yang of what that relationship could be. But like, once you figure it out, it is the biggest power move to me. Like the
It
fact
really
that
is,
Aaron and
but
I are the exact opposites and like strengths and weaknesses. And when we realized that and moved in that direction, like holy moly, right? Like
yeah.
hold on to your seat. It's such a power move.
Sometimes we'll be saying something to each other and we are literally saying the exact same thing, but in a different way.
100%.
And we have to say, hold on, pause. You're saying what I'm
Yeah.
saying. And then
We're saying the
other
same thing,
times,
just with completely different
yeah.
words.
And then other times we'll be at odds, right? And we can't decide how we want to handle something. And I'm going to quote Liz Trotter here because she's amazing. And Liz said, like, between me and my business partner, we have to say, are you a 1 or a 5?
Mm.
Right? And 5 is like, I'm going to die on this hill. And 1 is like, I couldn't care less about it, And so we have to use that sometimes in our business. Sometimes we get heated in a conversation. We're trying to like think of all avenues, the area. Sometimes somebody will fight and play devil's advocate just to play devil's advocate, but they just don't really care about it. And so we have to say like, okay, where are we at on this? So especially when you run a family business, you guys sleep in the same bed. So I'm sure that there are moments where you're like, oh, so it's definitely been a learning curve for us. And I think and I've said this before, one of the most critical components of that is that we always invest in our personal relationship. Similar to a marriage, if our personal relationship is not in a good space, it makes it harder to do what we have to do here. Do we get it done? Yes, of course. But it doesn't make it any easier, right? It makes that day when you gotta go to the office
Yeah.
seem like, oh, you know, so
100%. Yeah. All right. I'm going to ask each of you this question. What have you learned about yourselves individually since owning this business that maybe you didn't know before?
yeah, that's a great question. I would say that, um, I have grown a lot in my empathy over the years. When I started this business, I came from banking, which is very black and
Yep.
white. And we had a sales environment. I was a sales manager there. And so it was like, did you do it or didn't you? And one of the things that I've learned over the years is like, there are reasons people don't do stuff, you know, and it's more so than like they didn't want to, sometimes they wanted to, but they didn't have the mental spoons to do it or whatever. And so for me, that's been, Carrie has taught me a lot about that over the years, because she is definitely the one who is, you know, she's way more of an empath than I am. So yeah, that's definitely something that I've learned a lot of.
Carrie, what about you?
Honestly, I feel like I just really have learned like I can do whatever I want to do. Like I really there is no limitation to who I can be, what I can do. Several years ago, like I said earlier, I have 4 kids, and so several years ago, I always felt like my main thing that I was going to do good for this world was going to be raising my children. I there's 4 of them. I could probably get somebody's going to do something right? But then I realized like that's not enough. I have to contribute my my portion to society. And so, for me, it's just been learning about how all the different things. Like I have a lot more influence in the community than I ever had before, so I can use that to develop programs that help teenagers and things like that. And that's stuff that I would have thought was beyond me years ago.
I love that. I feel like that last 3 minutes was like therapeutic for both of you. That was really good. As we
For sure.
wrap up today, let's talk about like the future of hiring in the cleaning industry. What do you think about in like the next 3 to 5 years is going to be the thing that matters most in attracting and keeping employees in this industry? Obviously, we talked about like how COVID caused a major shift in it. I mean, Lord willing, we don't have anything close to COVID happening again anytime soon, or ever again. But what do you think the future of it looks like? Maybe the next 3 to 5 years. What are things going to be, important that maybe aren't as important right now?
Yeah. That's a great question. Cleaning by and large is pretty much the same thing. I mean, we've seen technology obviously advances, but once you go into the residential space, I think, technology will advance it slightly, but we're still going to be limited there. Janitorial, a little bit of a different thing, but I think that having companies that remain employee centric is going to be the way that we have longevity in the industry. Offering options to our teens that maybe they couldn't get in the cleaning industry before. I know that Matt Ricketts has talked a lot about this, about good benefits and stuff like that. As private equity enters our industry, I think that we're going to see a lot more of that, because this is a skilled trade,
Mm,
you know, and that's the way that I feel about it. And so why can we not offer the same benefits that other skilled trades offer? So I think that that's going to be a huge thing that will change. You're going to see it more and more across the board, which is good. And that's what's good about the ISSA too, right? Professionalizing the industry. So
sure.
I mean, I think that the cleaning industry and hiring and the types of people who are doing this job is very different than it used to be. I think that we have to focus on the fact that young bodies are who need to do this job, and young people have a different idea of what they want from their job than what we do. We always need to be focusing on what is this generation wanting from their life, from their personal life, their work life, whatever it is, and trying to be that for them, trying to be the place that provides that important thing for their generation. I always feel like 28 to 32 is ideal. They're mature, they know how to clean, and they have the energy. And so, like, whatever generation that is, that's my focus. Like, what do those kind of people really care about?
For sure. Earlier, we talked a little bit about how you're using AI and different technologies in this process of hiring and recruiting. But are there tools and trends or maybe strategies you're excited about that could possibly change the hiring game for cleaning companies in the future?
I think that mainly you really just it's a very personal kind of business. So as much as we can automate a lot of like those beginning stages and weed out, disqualify people, that's really all we really need to do is just disqualify people on more and more and more levels. But those first few touches, like, we don't have to be a part of that. I already know if you don't have a driver's license, you're out. So that kind of stuff, it saves us time, money, energy, thought, having to make another decision, that kind of thing. I really feel like just weeding out who's not for us is good.
Gotcha.
yeah, I do think that there's a lot to be said about technology and AI in terms of screening candidates and stuff like that. But again, in the janitorial space, maybe a little bit more of that could be executed. But I think in the residential space, at least it is our philosophy that we want to make sure that the candidates that are going into our clients' homes are well respected, well trusted
Mm,
individuals. And these are people's most private spaces, right? And so they do have to have those soft skills, like you mentioned, and sometimes you can act really nice for a pre-screen. But then when you get here and the dog jumps on you and you want to punt her across the office, it's something completely different. And so that's the thing is like, I do think that there are some advancements that will help streamline those processes, but I do think that that personal touch is sometimes still critical.
Gotcha. Cool. A fun way I like to end these episodes is just kind of like an elevator speech. So each of you get 60 seconds to speak to a cleaning business owner. And I don't have like a running clock or anything like that. Maybe we'll do that in the future. But you get 60 seconds to speak to a cleaning business owner who feels stuck because they can't find or keep employees. What do you tell them?
Oh gosh. Okay, so if budget's not an option, you probably need to have some sort of some sort of funnel set up for you. You can set it up for yourself if you're tech savvy, or you can hire a service. So you need to cast a wide net. If budget is an option for you, obviously you can manually post ads, you can post them in the library, you can post them, but getting the word out there is super critical. I think that hiring in general is very specific to your market. So, depending on where you are, some communities have a higher Hispanic community, some do not. So it just depends. You have to figure out what exactly is going on with the labor market that you have, and determine what your best course of action would be. I have heard many times that hitting up the laundromat is a great place to get people candidates. So, it just depends on what you have going on, what your budget is. But if you're having a hard time, we've posted on our private Facebook pages before, like, hey, we're looking for people. This is what we're paying. And sometimes we've had some of the best candidates we've ever had come through our doors that way. So our first 2 hires were like that, personal friends. So, there's lots of ways you can attack it, but getting the word out there, I think, is the most critical
Sure.
component of that, for sure.
Carrie, what about you?
I think that the main thing is don't expect everybody to be the same as you and value the same things that you value. So look at your processes, look at your training program, look at the types of clients you accept and the types of behavior you accept from your clients, the types of cleaning tasks that the people are going to be doing. Do you require them to hand wash 6 drains full of dishes or 6 sinks full of dishes? You know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of stuff, like, look at what am I doing to these people? What am I expecting of them, and how am I treating them right off the rip? Because that's really what it is. Like, you're treating them bad. You're not training them. You're not teaching them. You're expecting them to do things that are not kind. And the amount of people that I know are out there cussing and fighting with each other while there's cleaners in their house, that kind of behavior, people will accept it, and we just immediately say, "No, no, we're gonna treat you like the human that you are. We're gonna learn what you care about, and we're gonna try to make that happen."
Gotcha. Very cool. Lacie and Carrie, thank you so much for taking the time to be a part of this conversation today. Really appreciate it. Before we wrap up, where's the best place for listeners maybe to connect with you or follow along what you're building over at the Clean Squad?
Yeah, clean-squad.com is our website. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, of course. Also LinkedIn. You can find me, Lacie Nash, on LinkedIn. Definitely connect with me there. And if you're going to be at the ISSA convention, we'll be there. I'm going to be running coffee and conversation for residential cleaners with Carrie. She's a panelist, and Libby Delusion. So definitely hit us up there. Introduce yourself. I love making new friends. So
Love it.
Yeah, definitely. We love the ISSA. We think it's a super valuable way to grow your business, learn, have access to so many people who are willing to just freely give you the blueprint to making money. And I mean that was really the most pivotal thing for our business, was to connect with people who were successfully doing what we wanted to do. And so, we're very willing to share. Reach out to us, email, whatever.
Awesome. Well, thank you both again. And if you have found this episode helpful or you've learned some things that you're going to take back to your cleaning business owner, first off, awesome. Second, share it. Because if I know one thing about this residential cleaning industry, it is one of the most tight knit industries and communities of an industry I've ever seen in my entire life. So you probably know 6 to 7 other cleaning business owners right now that could value from the conversation that we had on this podcast today. Because we do know at the end of the day, your systems can only take you so far. It's your people who are going to power your business. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.